If you're a fan of the inner workings of Hollywood, then check out my podcast, The Town, on the Ringer Podcast Network. My name's Matt Bellany. I'm founding partner at Puck and the writer of the What I'm Hearing newsletter. And with my show, The Town, I bring you the inside conversation about money and power in Hollywood. Every week, we've got 3 short episodes featuring real Hollywood insiders to tell you what people in town are actually talking about. We'll cover everything from why your favorite show was canceled overnight, which streamer is on the brink of collapse, and which executive is on the hot seat. Disney, Netflix, who's up, down, and who'll never eat lunch in this town again. Follow The Town on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome to this late summer edition of Group Chat. I am Justin Verrier, and joining me as always, straight from the beaches of Italy. Where were you, Big Waz?
I did not hit the beach in Italy, but I did spend 4 days in Rome, 1 night in Florence, and from there went to Barcelona, did the beaches over there at Barceloneta, and also went to Sitges, which is like 15 miles outside of the city. Nice little private beach. Shouts to the people at the Little Beach House, Soho Little Beach House in Sitges, Spain. A little town pretty adjacent to Barcelona. Had a great time. Lots of tapas, lots of pasta alla matriciana, lots of carbonara. Lots of all of that, man. My new name, they're saying my new name is Cugino Waznio. So,
What does that mean?
Cousin Waz, yeah.
Okay. So you're a paisano, is what you're saying.
Oh, my God, yeah, big time. So, yeah, just had a great time, man. Spent, close to 2 weeks out in Spain and Italy. Just dope people. Ran into a couple of Americans. Always good to see our fellow Yanks abroad.
Sure.
Just great, man. Just a great little, reprieve, little time off. But I'm glad to be back, grinding out this off-season content.
That's right. That's what they say about late August, right? That's when all of the big stuff happens in the NBA, which is why we're assembled. Unfortunately, Rob did not join us because I think he's on actual vacation in late August with the rest of the NBA. But I appreciated you Instagramming your way through your travels, because I am not going on a European vacation this year. I'm in lovely Portland, just getting used to yard work. And so I feel like I lived vicariously through yours. So
I love that. Love to hear it.
Yeah. I didn't realize there's a Soho house in a small town in Spain. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so they have a Soho house in actual Barcelona, which that was cool too. I actually did that my last night out there. But the beach house, like they have one in Miami, they have one in Malibu. Malibu is like nobody can get in. It's like, Barack Obama and freaking, whoever else gets to go there. But Miami, Barcelona, like you can just pull up, you just make a reservation and just show up. So yeah, man, it was pretty cool. Like they have their own little section on the beach. It sets you up with a bed. And then when you're done with that, you go inside the house, have a nice lunch or dinner, little glass of vino. Just nice vibes, man. Good vacation vibes.
For sure. Yeah. For me, it was more like purchasing a chainsaw, trying to cut up a dead tree in my yard, and then coming in, making like a 3-ingredient sheet pan sort of meal that I found on Instagram. I mean, to each their own, but I'm moving it up too in my own way.
Are you repurposing that wood? Like, do you have a fireplace at this place, or like, are you just like straight getting rid of that?
I don't have a fireplace, which makes it tough. So I then have to parse it out over multiple weeks in the bins because they don't all fit in the bins. And I'm not going to pay extra just to put some bags on the corner. You know how it is.
Oh, God.
No, but I have to say, home ownership is dope. I'm enjoying it. I just planted some leafy greens in the garden.
Oh, okay. You getting the garden going.
That's right. Yeah, I had to weed whack it down. We actually had an emailer who asked about whether or not I was going food garden or I guess flower garden, but we're going foods here. Unfortunately, it's late August, so you can only plant a certain type of plant. So it's a lot of lettuces, some sprouts, some cauliflower. Okay. So in a couple months, if you need some cauliflower, you just happen to be in the Pacific Northwest, just let me know.
Yeah, organic. I love it.
That's right. How many of them will survive? We'll see. But if I get like one of the many crops, then I think we're in the money here. But yeah, today's episode, we're going to get into some of your other mailbag questions. Thanks to everyone for sending those in. I have to say it was a little bit more sparse than it is typically during the regular season, but we managed to mine some content here for to get you through your Labor Day drives or whatever you're doing this weekend. But first, we need to talk about Steph Curry. Right before we came on here, signed an extension, 1 year, $62.6 million, or basically a little bit less than Waz is going to make for this upcoming season. That's taking him through the 2026-2027 season. So he tacks on an extra year. He's now in Golden State, presumably, or at least on this contract, for 3 more seasons. Waz, what did you think about this? Was it surprising to you at all that this came so late in the summer, or just in general?
I'm not surprised in the sense that the Warriors spent the entire offseason signaling that they're still in a win now position, which means that they still want to build around Steph Curry, which means that they're committed to him. So the idea that they would further that commitment by tacking on an extra year to the deal doesn't surprise me. And then, after watching Steph Curry take over a freaking Olympics semis and finals, like while playing next to literally the best players in the world, and Steph Curry showing that he's still at that level, it's a no-brainer that they should be committed to him. Like, this guy is the greatest player in franchise history. Outside of like Montana and Jerry Rice or whatever, he's the greatest Bay Area athlete ever, period. And so to treat him that way would make the most sense. Like, let's make the most of these last great Steph years. Let's commit to him both financially and by, trying to put together a win now product on the floor.
Yeah, this is probably a bigger win for the organization and maybe just the fan base to know that Steph isn't going to be the type of guy who's going to be looking for the exit if things don't go well within the first couple of weeks of this upcoming season. Because let's be honest, they had a fairly decent offseason, but it was a lot of getting intriguing guys in the door. They made a very big splash about, they're going after Paul George and we're going after Lauri Markkanen. And you have to wonder if that was so public specifically because they were trying to signal to Steph that they were trying their hardest to do something, anything to get him a superstar to bring him through the next couple of years of his like waning prime, I guess you would say. But to me, this is very much a thanks for your patience sort of payday, where it's like, this might not be a quick fix. We'll get to the trade deadline and maybe someone becomes available, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go through the entire next season and they're functionally the same sort of team here. So on the one hand, great deal for Steph, just banking a ton of money. Maybe he can, just fund another pilot on Peacock. He's just got the cash for it now. On the other hand, it's probably an indication that this is probably more of a 1 to 2 to maybe even longer sort of process here, which I think then it gets sort of dicey because I don't see the next guy coming. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think it's a mutual understanding that, especially if you're Steph, if, he said that he still wants to win and he's gone on record like, they talked to me about the things that were on the offer. None of it would have swung our fortunes like in some incredible direction. And he's demonstrated that he's willing to be patient about it. I don't think this is, like the extreme of this was LeBron in the second Cleveland stint where he just kept taking 1+1s, where he's just like, if you guys don't show me that you're committed to taking this thing seriously, I'll just bounce. He's doing the opposite of that. It's just taking it in good faith that the Lakers are going to do what's right. And by that, I mean, the owner and his actual sons who run the team now. I think he's just showing faith in those guys that he's willing to be patient and like willing to be here until 2027. Like, that's a long time from now, like 3 more seasons guaranteed. So I'm not surprised by it. This is what he signaled. And the organization has rhetorically at least said they're on the same page as Steph. They're not ready for some tear down, rebuild, tear this thing down to the studs. We have Steph. We're going to give it a good faith effort to be good.
I think if you're playing devil's advocate, I agree with you. I think the worry would be if you're giving the organization a longer runway, does that give them more incentive to try to build equity or build up some of the younger guys, namely a Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski? Does this afford them the option to be like, actually, we're going to take a step back, let these guys become something so we could hit the ground running maybe next season, as opposed to hitting the gas pedal, trading those guys and the picks for someone more in the Paul George, older superstar, so that we could take advantage of Steph's prime? And you brought up LeBron. LeBron's kind of the in some ways the worst case scenario, because these days, like, the Lakers are good and competitive and they should be in the mix next season, but I think we would all agree they don't have necessarily the same ceiling as a lot of the other teams in the Western Conference. And so you can look at this, and again, devil's advocate, and be like, are they just paying Steph because they know Steph is going to make them a ton of money just to be around?
I think so. The reason why I don't have any problem with this approach by the Warriors, this isn't a Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, oh, we're taking team-friendly deals so that you could build up a team, and then, you know, in Dirk's case, like, they never actually make good on the promise to build up a contender around him. Like, if they're paying Steph as if he's a 25-year-old in his prime, and his part of that payment is that he's patient with the roster building, I think that's a pretty fair trade-off, right? Like, if you're paying me my top dollar, and saying that you're going to put this team together, like, whether you do or don't, I think it's kind of immaterial, dude. Like, the guy has won 4 championships in that jersey. I don't see the urgency here on either one of these sides. I actually respect the sort of, this is bigger than basketball wins or losses component to this. Like, there's a deep bond between franchise and player that, you know, like, even somebody who can be as cynical as I can be about these things, I kind of recognize how special it is. And that, like, this to me just signals that this is bigger than basketball when it comes to Steph, the Warriors, and the fan base.
So you think it matters that Steph plays his entire career in a Golden State Warriors jersey?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Oh, you just can't put a price tag on what this guy means to the people who love this team. And those 2 cities, San Francisco and Oakland. This guy it's beyond beloved, and it's been earned. And so, you know, if Steph goes out there and he's making, you know, remember the last Kobe contract where everybody just rolled their eyes and was like, Jeannie Buss, what the hell are you doing? Yo, 9 out of 10 Laker fans, if you asked them about it, they would do it 10 times again. 10 out of 10 times they would do it because they love Kobe that much. It didn't matter that he played on crap teams at the end. And so, I respect that.
Yeah, I have to wonder how much of this is also influenced by the fact that Clay left this offseason too. To lose more from that core would probably be a pretty big hit just for the fan base. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the opposite end of that. I don't think it would be a big deal if he played the remaining 3 years or 2 years or 1 year for another team, because I do think these guys typically come home. Like the Patrick Ewing in the Orlando Magic jersey, the, Olajuwon playing for the Raptors, like those things just happen. And if that were to happen, Tony Parker in the Charlotte Hornets jerseys, I don't think anyone would hold it against the organization or Steph, but maybe Steph's just on another level. Maybe he is in that Kobe tier where it's like he is the exception for that. So I get that argument. I do think this makes a lot of sense to be patient ultimately, because I think you want to be ready for the next opportunity. And you saw a lot of teams jumping into the Lauri Markkanen fray, in large part because he seemed like the only gettable guy left on the market this summer. I think you want to be available, have your assets just kind of baking there and building equity, so that when a guy comes up that you weren't expecting, Donovan Mitchell, whomever, just all of a sudden, we need to get rid of this guy, he wants out, then you can jump on them. Because I do think the Warriors are in that position where they have the motivation plus the future capital plus some intriguing young guys in order to be in the mix for anyone that becomes available. So that makes a little bit of sense to me.
I would say the reason why I feel the way that I do about it is because it literally is fan service. The fans are not going to be upset if the Warriors aren't competing with championships, but they still get to watch Steph be great every now and again. And I'm sorry. Like, I kind of like the idea that an organization is giving the fan base essentially what they want. And they clearly want Steph to be a part of the Warriors for as long as possible. Like, it's just been demonstrated that this is what the fans want. Steph more than anything. Like, let's ride the Steph thing out as long as we can. And if it means that you're not being the cold-hearted, efficiency chasing, this is not this is just heartstring stuff. We need to be more, analytically minded. This guy's getting long in the tooth. We need to be more ruthless. Like, I don't have a problem with a franchise not taking that tact in order to satisfy the demands of the people who support the team. Like, that's why I'm just I'm not mad at this.
So you think the Warriors should operate like Marvel? Is this like their Secret Wars where they're just bringing Downey back no matter what?
Here's what I'll say about that. I think Marvel is crap. I'm so happy that I don't have to participate in that world. However, the people who love it, they still keep going back. They keep going back. You can't argue with that result. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. The one thing, and this is just more on the kind of liner notes sort of thing, it does remind me that Steph is getting long in the tooth here. He's 35 years old. I was looking up LeBron because that's the obvious comp for virtually anything Steph is doing these days. And 35 was when LeBron got AD in there and went forward, which is ridiculous because LeBron feels like he's played 10 more seasons after that and feels like he and AD have been doing everything together for eternity. But Steph is at that point where whatever moves he's making now are probably going to dictate the course of his last couple of years in the NBA here. So I think whatever move the Warriors are making is going to be crucially important, not only for them, but for Steph and for the NBA. And so taking a more prudent, let's wait and see approach, I think it makes some sense to me. I want to get into the Warriors and like their fate this season, but I think we can get into our mailbag because that is one of the questions that is going to come up here. Let's bring in Isaiah, who is our go-to question asker, just voice of the people, I would say. Isaiah, thanks for joining us.
Of course. First question is, which 5 players would you rather see in an ongoing Netflix series about the 23-24 season?
Okay, so I think yesterday on Tuesday, we got the release that Netflix is doing a quarterback receiver type documentary series where they're following 5 individual players. And now they said it was for the 2023-2024 season, which was last season. But that doesn't make sense because this comes out in October and the 2024-2025 season is what's ahead. It would be weird to show us what happened last season as the new season has started. So I'm a little bit confused, but I think the basic question here is the 5 guys that they're following or have followed are Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, Jason Tatum, and Domantas Sabonis, your guy.
D.I. ain't dead yet.
How do you feel about that 5? And are you like interested in this whole exercise to begin with?
I'm fine with it. LeBron is LeBron. He's got to be on there if you're trying to signal that this is a big deal. Jimmy and Ant Edwards are actually going to say shit. So I'm really happy about their inclusion. Domantas Sabonis and Jason Tatum, let's be real. These guys are not interesting people. They're just not. Like we just have to be. And I think Jason Tatum is a great guy, but he's not a compelling figure. Obviously loves his teammates and like he's a model NBA player. He's not a model reality TV figure. And so to that, and those 2 guys leave me a little bit cold. LeBron, because he's gonna do his LeBron act. Like, this guy is just such a freaking he's a producer of content. So he's so content brained that, and he can't help but like produce at least some interesting stuff on the margins, even if he's trying to spin us the entire time. He's one big spin zone. But I'm entertained by watching LeBron bullshit us at this point. It's become like a parlor game for me, watching LeBron give his ridiculous answers and pretend that it's off the cuff and it's spontaneous. It's funny watching him do that dog and pony show. But I do think, again, Jimmy and Ant Edwards are going to say and do things that are interesting and legitimately candid and off the cuff because they don't know how to be any other way. Like, it's just been proven. Like, Jimmy's been in the league for 10 plus years or whatever it's been at this point. And the guy at every single turn has spoken his mind. And I love that about him. And Ant Edwards, the same way. Like, you put a mic in front of this guy, you don't know what's going to happen. And so that's legitimately exciting.
Ant is perfect for this exercise because he's also at that sweet spot where he's right on the cusp of being something. And to catch him at the moment where he's on the rise, he's becoming a superstar, face of the league sort of player. It's going to be great to look at this now, but also in like 10 years, look back at the footage and be like, oh, damn, remember when Ant like couldn't close out games? Like he wasn't playmaking enough in the playoffs. And now all of a sudden here he is winning titles. So I think just like the archival aspect of this is really important for Ant. For Jimmy, I guess it depends on what season they're actually following, because it might just be a lot of him like hanging out with ice on his knees or just like barking things from the sideline as he sits out of a 2-week stretch of games, because he did not play a ton last season, including in the playoffs. He has some of that LeBron stuff in him, for better or worse, too, where he's like, oh, the big face coffee stuff. And like, I could do some of that, but if it's too much, I kind of get a little turned off by it. The other guys, I think you're right. I think anything with LeBron is great. The other two guys, I'll just say in general, this whole exercise is awesome because I'm in the process of watching the Chicago Bears Hard Knocks, and every single offseason before the football season starts, whether I go on to watch football or not, I watch Hard Knocks and talk myself into some practice squad player who's going to be the next big thing. And I love that team for about 3 to 4 weeks. So if you just give me that sort of experience before the season, I'm all in on it.
Love it.
But I do want to talk about the 5 guys who we would think would do best in this format. And I looked at it more of going into next season as opposed to what was last season. So if you had like your master list, you can have anybody in the NBA. Like, who are your 5?
So let me just preface this by saying I'm messy. And so my list is going to be messy.
Okay.
Ja Morant, number 1 with a bullet, no pun intended. I think that would be must-see TV, watching Ja Morant, how he goes about handling this upcoming season. I think the Grizzlies are going to be really good. I think they're going to be interesting this year. I think Ja Morant's story is legitimately interesting. So Ja Morant, absolutely up there. Zion, for the same reasons. He's messy.
Yeah.
I like the, skinny Zion picture. That seemed to be
looking
pretty legitimate. So would definitely be into a Zion. Jaylen Brown, he's got a new hot girlfriend. He's parading around everywhere. SPs, all it is. He's also been prone to say some out there things, dissing Nike and things about like that on Team USA.
In the pool. Looking like Wolverine, just like getting the adamantium into his bones. Yeah,
exactly. Jaylen Brown, I would absolutely swap him in for Jason Tatum in a heartbeat. Another messy pick, Kyrie. Would love to see Kyrie, how his interplay with Luka, Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, like the entire Dallas Mavericks sort of. I would love to see Kyrie interact with Miriam Adelson. That would be pretty cool. Like how that would transpire on a Hard Knocks basketball show. So yeah, those are 4 guys that immediately came to mind because I just think they would add a layer of human interest that I just don't see it from Domantas Sabonis. Like, come on.
Sabonis is a tough one. I like those picks, but speaking of Sabonis, I'm going to go with, first and foremost, one of his, well, not countrymen, but maybe back in the day, the former Yugoslavia. I think Jokic has to be in this. One, because I just want to know what Jokic is doing in his free time. And even if it's as simple as like reading a novel, just like in his study as he puts his kids to bed or afterward, I want to watch that, because whatever this guy is doing behind closed doors, which he doesn't really give anyone any access to, I just want to know what's up there, because you see him in the off season and he's just letting loose. So are we getting at home Jokic, or is he actually out there with his Serbian buddies in his private Serbian basement club, just hanging out and just actually ripping it during the season? Who knows? I have Wemby. perfect
Of course
time
you do.
for this guy. Of course I do. But also perfect moment for him. He seems like he's going to take off this next season. Would love to see like what his process is. I want to watch him like stretch. Like, how does this guy just get limber and like, how does he make this gangly ass body work? With something that I am really interested in. I had Zion too. I had the Nova Knicks. Just pick any of them. Just watch them do podcasts. Watch them interact with Fred Katz and Tom Thibodeau. Fun. Like, that'd be fun. And then from the kind of wild card pile, I have Ben Simmons. What's that guy doing?
Oh man, you're right. I should have had Ben Simmons on my all mess team. Yeah. What is he doing?
Is he actually in the building most of the time? How much rehab is he doing? I just want to know what's going on in that guy's world. And for the same reason, Grant Williams, I think, probably fit that too.
Yeah, he's a loopy guy.
Yeah, I just want to see people pretend to be friends with Grant Williams because there's only so much of that they could probably do over the course of the season that they'd probably catch like LaMelo Ball just rolling his eyes as he told Grant Williams that he can't come out with him that night. You know, that sort of thing would be really interesting. The last one I have on my list, big wild card here. I have Woj. I have Adrian Wojnarowski. Watching him just like stammer through like a stand-up with Scott Van Pelt.
Oh my God, dude.
Calling one of his colleagues to berate them for reporting something that wasn't in line with the way that he wanted it presented. You know, that sort of stuff. Just real fun times with Woj.
Him just having penne pasta with his wife for dinner.
Sure.
Like, what are the dinner table conversations
Tall
like?
glass of milk. Yeah.
Right. You have Woj as a milk guy?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he's doing whole milk too. He's probably one of those guys that doesn't drink coffee, but he drinks whole milk multiple times over the course of the day.
Oh my goodness.
And then you could do the Shams for the next year and just watch him like hanging out at the Soho House with you on a given weekend.
Shouts to my guy Shams. That's my boy right there.
Okay. All right. Why don't we go to the next question, Isaiah?
Okay. Next question is from Lay Bong James, which is just incredible. What two teams in each conference that made the playoffs last year won't make it this season?
Okay. So I think this
Are
is
we talking
kind
about
of
real playoffs?
I went to 10 deep on this. So I'm talking playing tournament as well, because the East is actually pretty impossible. I don't know any team that's going to actually vault into the top 8 that wasn't there to begin with. And just to remind everybody, the 10 that made it into the play-in portion were Boston, New York, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Orlando, Indiana, Philadelphia, Miami, Chicago, Atlanta. If we're going 10, I think the last two, Chicago and Atlanta, are probably the most susceptible to fall out. But the thing is, like, who's jumping in?
Brooklyn?
No,
they're done. They're going to the bottom.
Yeah.
Toronto, I guess Toronto would be the obvious pick because of the quote unquote internal improvement of guys like Scotty Barnes and Quickly, and RJ Barrett looked pretty damn good this summer, honestly. So Toronto, probably the prime candidate. I don't know how anybody could have faith in Charlotte. The Wizards are going to be horrible. The Pistons should be way better, but like, will they? I don't know. Toronto seems like the only team that could come up there. And Trae Young, like, is giving the worst, weirdest interviews all off season. Like, I was crying when he dissed their number 1 overall pick. He's like, that guy's not going to be a superstar. You know what I mean?
I know. That was tough.
He's never going to amount to anything in the league. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. They just drafted this kid number 1 overall, and Trae Young's already calling him, Thabo Cephalosha, basically. Like, so that Atlanta thing doesn't seem to be cleaning itself up anytime soon. So, they seem like prime candidates for that.
Yeah, because I don't think Miami is going to fall that far out that they would fall out of the play-in. I would say the team that's most likely to vault in here, if anyone does, would probably be Charlotte if LaMelo Ball is healthy, because they probably have just enough to make it past the Bulls, who are kind of in that weird in-between zone where they're not tanking, but they are trying to make something of their younger players. Like Giddey and White are going to be better than, for instance, whatever the Brooklyn Nets are going to give them. But I don't think they're going to make much of a difference in their bottom line, if anything. So I would say Chicago probably most likely to fall out. But yeah, I think Hawks and Bulls are pretty clearly the ones in the East. The West is much harder. I don't know if you've taken a look there, but last year, well, let me give you the 10 that we're in. OKC, Denver, Minnesota, Clippers, Mavs, Suns, Lakers, Pelicans, Kings, Warriors.
So the team that strikes me as definitely probably headed for not the top 10 is the Clippers. They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
They're done. Kawhi Leonard's not going to play. They don't have Paul George anymore. Look, I love Norm Powell, but give me a break. Okay,
Yeah.
They're done. They're not making the playoffs. They won't be in the play-in. And I think Memphis is going to win 50 games. I do. And so immediately I see Memphis as a Clipper replacement. Now, I don't think Houston's going to be better than Golden State this year. I just don't. I know a lot of y'all loving the Spurs. That's a 38-win team to me. Like the surrounding talent is still pretty putrid. Let's be real. Wemby is incredible. Gold medal game was a revelation, damn near. He looked great. Okay. Glad we still kicked their French asses, but he looked great. Yeah, y'all see me I wore this on purpose, Justin.
God bless America.
USA, baby. You know it. Yeah, Portland's going to continue to stink up the joint. The Jazz, obviously. Like, I don't care what they did with the marketing deal. They're not serious about winning basketball games there. And so, yeah, honestly, I think it's going to be the same teams minus the Clippers and the Grizzlies.
I think the Clippers are the obvious candidate. I do think a lot of it comes down to whether or not Kawhi actually plays. If Kawhi is playing, if he's in like 60 games, let's just say, I think they're going to be in the mix there, because I don't think, for instance, the Warriors as currently constructed are light years better than what the Clippers have there, just between even Harden and Kawhi, because they just have such a bench of like quality role players that they can only fall so far if their superstars are healthy. But Kawhi's never healthy.
Hear me out though.
Yep.
Hear me out though. The Warriors won 46 games while Draymond Green completely being the worst version of himself in terms of maniac level.
Yep.
If he gets to like closer to like, normal level maniac and he plays more games, I think they're close to 50 wins again, man. I do think they're much better than the Clippers. Like, their guys are way more reliable. And Kawhi Leonard, this idea that we could just pencil him in for 60 games, Justin.
We'll see.
I don't see it, man. I just don't see it.
The Warriors definitely raised their floor. Like, even getting Clay out of a position where they're reliant on him to be the Clay of old, I think is going to him. Totally. D'Anthony Melton, quality player. If he's healthy, that's a guy that needs to stay healthy. Buddy Hield fits what they want to do there. So, I could definitely see the Warriors still in the mix there. I have the Warriors down, if only because so many of the other teams behind them are steadily getting better. Like, the Rockets are probably going to be pretty good if they figure their shit out this year. I think the one team that's liable to fall all the way out is the Pelicans. On the one hand, I think Zion is primed for potentially a pretty big year here if he does have his shit together. But there's still a lot of messiness to clean up with just that roster. Brandon Ingram is still on there. If he's there the entire year, is he buying into the system that's leaning more and more towards Zion? They don't even have a center at this point. I think it's Daniel Tice and the guy that they drafted from Baylor in the first round. And so there's just still something to sort out there. And maybe they figure it out before game 1 of the regular season. But if they don't, and then the typical Zion stuff kicks in, I could definitely see them falling out, and that can get pretty difficult pretty quickly. So I think we're saying Clippers. I'm saying maybe Pelicans. If there's anybody else that falls out, who do you think is the next most likely?
It's got to be the Kings, right? Because I think any extended time missed by Sabonis or De'Aaron Fox, and that thing gets not excellent quickly. And so I think the Kings are super successful. And of course, the Lakers, their best guy is 40. Give me a break here. This dude is old. Looked great in the summer. captaining Team USA. It was awesome to watch. He's clearly still one of the best players in the world, but like he's just not as durable as he used to be. He's just not that machine. And how could he be? Again, the age thing is real. So you gotta look at the Lakers and their fragility with how top heavy they are. And AD not being the paragon of health his whole career. So of course they gotta be a candidate.
Yep. A little worried about a kind of Team USA knockdown effect where it's like, on the one hand, I was reminded how good of a pairing both the Suns and the Lakers have when four of the main guys on Team USA playing these incredible summer performances are on two teams that have been underperforming for the past couple of years is something that really like jolted me back a little bit. On the other hand, like playing some hard ass minutes in early August, and I wonder how much that's going to affect a guy like LeBron who's going to be 40 and AD who obviously has his own injury history. The Kings also were too thin to make it out of the play-in last year. They lost some guys down the stretch. And so, like, you're right. I think maybe they don't have enough depth to support even what they've built there with getting DeMar DeRozan. So you're right. I think those are the next ones up on the list there. All right. Isaiah, hit us with the next one.
Next question is from Schroets Magoats. Who do you all expect to be in the top 10 players at the end of the season?
Okay. So this one's a little tricky because the top 10, I don't think really fluctuates all this much. And I say this as someone who's regularly rating the top 10 NBA players on a month-to-month basis, as we do at the Ringers Top 100. So this was the top 10 for the last list that we put out, which was, I want to say, after the playoffs, after the finals. So Jokic was 1, then Luka, Giannis, Shea, Tatum, Embiid, Curry, Edwards, Durant, and AD. LeBron not in there. I think he was at 11. So already you're starting with a really tough crop. Like if there's any guy that's going to fall out of there, I have a hard time even picking one.
Not even Jason Tatum?
well, I would like to go on record that even for said list, I was like, Tatum at 5 is way too high. Like, I know he's coming off the finals. We have to give him his flowers, but like, Embiid being hurt, like there's no world in which Tatum's a better player than Embiid. It's just like it's recent results. So Tatum would have to tumble significantly. I guess AD just because
and AD too.
He gets hurt.
Yeah. AD could, but in terms of guys that are, because like somebody like Paul George or Dame Lillard, like they are who they're not making a leap. They're on the fringes of this kind of thing, but they're not going to be significantly better than AD and KD and Edwards. This is just not going to happen when you consider their age and what they've already accomplished. So it has to be young guys who are stepping into who they're going to be in the future. And obviously Wemby has to be at the top of that list. But like the rest of these cats, like you got to show me. Love Paolo, like you got to show me. Chet, these guys got to show me. Zion, I think is the only person who has been this level of player for months at a time in previous seasons in his career, but he's never put it together for a whole season where we leave that season thinking like Zion is clearly one of the 10 best basketball players on planet Earth. But I think he's definitely capable. And again, like those Ozempic picks that I've seen, highly encouraging.
Yeah. In the saddest like Jordan brand whatever thing that they have going on there together, where the most morose pitchmen in history are just looking glumly out at like the Korean landscape or wherever that was. I think you're right. I think Wemby's the only guy who has an actual chance of vaulting into the top 10 this season, and not only based on what happened at the Olympics, where he was incredible, let's just be honest. And then also, I love over the course of the offseason, the stories coming out about him, about guys being like, holy shit, like I went against him and I had no idea what was going on here. That dude is legit. I think that stamped him in a way that if you had any reservations about this guy having like sort of best player in the world sort of trajectory, like I think you need to put that aside there. Zion's the other guy, but a total dark horse where we're not sure what we're going to get. That's how I feel about the Pelicans at this point. I think Zion could easily be an MVP candidate if he shows up in shape and locked in, because that's the type of caliber player he has the ceiling of. Unfortunately, I think things could absolutely fall apart if he's not around, or if the Pelicans just can't get their shit together. So he's kind of a long shot. The other guys I have down here are more just leap candidates in general, not necessarily top 10, because top 10 is such a high bar to clear. I think you mentioned a few of them. Banchero certainly going to have the opportunities. I was a little disappointed that the Magic didn't go out and get another ball handler, but if anything, that gives him more on-ball reps to put up bigger numbers, which would help him get into that sort of all-NBA sort of territory that he's sort of flirting with right now. Chet and J-Dub had their crucible of the playoffs moments where they didn't fare all that great. Had a couple moments, but by and large,
young guys. These are young guys. Their first big playoff games. I'm not deterred in terms of what I think about their ability to develop at all.
Yep. And so I could see both of them taking that, going and working out with KD as Chet did, as with like the gangly summit that they had with Bol Bol, and just like spinning it forward. And then a couple of young guys, more like second, third year guys. Derek Lively, I think he's primed for another big year. He's probably going to be starting this year. Brandon Miller, I think we all really liked what he had in the shadow of Wemby and Chet.
Big Brandon Miller guy. Yep.
Get him next to LaMelo if he's healthy. You get that new rookie that they have that looks like prime Stromile Swift, just the biggest, most athletic dude I think I've ever seen on a basketball court. We'll get to see him, I think, take a leap here. Jalen Green on the list, but I'm not sure. I really don't know what to make of the Rockets, because they have some stuff to figure out here, but clearly their talent has popped at various times last season. So there's something here, but they need to make a meal out of it.
Yeah, because Jalen Green is the kind of player where if what he showed at the end of last season is real, he needs to be given the ball. Like, that's the archetype of player that he is. And you wonder if this Rockets roster is suitable to that, right? Like, is he good enough yet to justify that kind of decision from a coaching staff and their approach? So, I mean, they're a fascinating collection of guys. I just think with the God-given ability that Jalen Green has in terms of his first step, and just his ability to blow by anybody. And he's made some improvements on the fringes of his ball handling and pick and roll navigation and shot selection, like just tightening all those things up and combining it with his elite, off the charts athleticism is still so tantalizing, man. And so, yeah, I'll be looking forward to him. And to me, he's definitely a leap candidate just off of talent alone.
Incredible sizzle reel from those Houston Rockets summer runs where he looks like the goddamn Flash going through some of those guys. He is just an absolute blur with the ball. Last guy I just have on my list here, I have Shaedon Sharpe down, just because someone on Portland has got to pop. This one's for my Pacific Northwest brethren in Sistren. And I think he is probably the most talented guy on their team. He got kind of lost in the shuffle because of injuries last season, but I'm just like reminded sometimes where I'm watching clips of him blocking like shots from three in the corner and he just looks like he's flying in midair. Like something is there with that guy, and he's young enough to put it together and put the injuries behind him. So I could see him getting into that like 50-60 range if he puts together a good season, not necessarily top 10. So the other thing I wanted to talk about though with this question is you're seeing a lot of like those summer surveys. ESPN does this a lot around this time. And one of them was, I think it was a Tim Bontemps poll. It was like, oh, who's going to be the best guy in 5 years? And some people said Jokic, some people said Wemby. I think the most interesting question is the question that the NBA GM survey typically does right before the season, where they're like, who are you building your team with today? How would you answer that question if you were GM Waz?
I think coming out of the playoffs, I might have been a Luka person. But coming out of Serbia in the semifinals against Team fucking USA and Jokic and a bunch of freaking mechanics basically scaring the living daylights out of the best play in the all-star NBA team. And not like in the past where the parts didn't make sense. Players, positions, parts, people playing roles, superstars, all of it actually making sense, and Jokic and a bunch of freaking Serbs basically damn near winning that game. Like to me, it feels like he's the obvious answer in terms of who will make the team building exercise the easiest. It feels like it has to be Jokic, dude. Like these Serbian, like Bogey, I love him. He's every NBA team's idea of a 6-man spark plug guy. He's not a guy. And Jokic is like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to dominate the flow and the character of this game. You know, Micic, look, NBA nerds love him. I got a soft spot for the guy, too. He's nobody's idea of some great player, bro. And so just
the photo
that,
on our group chat. On our group chat. Yeah.
Group chat. So to me, man, I probably like coming out of the playoffs, I had become so Luka pilled. But yeah, this is just recency bias, man. I'd go with Jokic, bro. I just would.
I would split hairs in that I think Jokic solidified himself, if there was any doubt, which there really wasn't, of being the best player in the world right this second. I think the thing that just gives you pause if you're building a team is just the age there, where it's like, how many prime years does Jokic have? Honestly, how many years does Jokic really want to do this before he goes and sits in his chariot with his little horsey pulling him around his yard there? So like, the runway you'd have with Jokic is a little bit more limited than someone like Wemby, who is, I don't think 21 yet. I think he becomes 21 in like next season. So you feel like you have a decade plus with him, whereas you have like a couple of years with Jokic. But I think we're kind of aligned there. All right, two more. Isaiah, hit us with the next one.
Next one is from Joe Tabaris. You guys have a team that no matter the highs and lows for them, you think are going to be fun to watch. Expectations are set to 0, but fun values at a 10. Who's your pick?
Waz, do you have one for this?
Realistically, it's probably still the Wolves for me. Outside of their championship, are they like fulfilling their championship promise with the salaries and blah, blah, blah? It's just, I just love watching Ant figure new things out about himself and his game and what he can do and achieve in terms of manipulating defenses, in terms of just the kind of defensive player he wants to be on a night. To me, like, he feels like the most, outside of Wemby, right, who Ant is just established more. He's made an all-star and all of that stuff. It just feels so revelatory more often with Ant than pretty much anybody else that I'm watching these days, because he has that superstar, top of the league potential that he's always scraping against every now and again. And so to me, it's going to be the Wolves again this year. I'm going to be watching every game because I'm so into Ant's story. I don't like, are the Wolves in the tier? Like, is Rudy the kind of guy that can close a playoff game? And like, I don't really care. Like, those questions are not going to be that meaningful for me. It's just going to be about watching Ant be Ant for another season.
So you don't care about the expectations, just as like a basketball
Just as a
fan,
basketball
you like
fan,
watching them do their
yes.
thing. Totally. I get that. That's a good one. I picked this more as like, what is the bad team that you don't think
horrible
anything
team that I will watch? The Spurs.
Just 'cause it's and so it's true. If they're getting you to watch the Spurs, you know Wemby is having an effect.
Exactly.
For that reason, though, I picked the Hornets, and you can kind of guess based on I've been talking around them for a little bit for some of these questions. I just think if you look at the lineup on paper, like something good could happen to this team. And now with a new coach, a new organization behind them, like I almost wonder if LaMelo is healthy. And God, we need to say that a million times because that's the one thing that could swing them one way or another. It's just like this team actually does have a lot of talent. LaMelo, you have Brandon Miller, who we just talked about. Miles Bridges, don't love him personally, but God, it's like a lot of high-level guys all put together that something good could happen. They have this new rookie who, as I mentioned, just looks like the Terminator. So I'm just trying to find out what's going on with him. Then they have the Grant Williams factor. Like, is this guy any good? Does anyone actually like him? Do I want to watch that play out regardless? 100%. And they got our guy Micic. So, like, what's not to like there? And I also think the early window for League Pass junkies like ourselves is pretty dire. And so I'm often looking for anyone, to just jump out in that like 4 p.m. Pacific range just so I could watch them. And so I'm going to be watching bad basketball. And so if the Hornets could be fun and bad, I'll take that at this point.
And that's it's so funny, Justin. It's like that daily feeling for me at like 3:45 where it's just like, oh, gotta turn on one of these freaking Eastern Conference games coming up. Let me see what's on the schedule. Yeah, there will be a lot of Hornets consumed this season for sure.
Yep. All right, last one.
Last question is from Jack Goodwin. Hi, guys. I'm from the UK and a big fan of the pod. What do you think are the best city/NBA team combos to visit? I've been to New York and MSG, but in your opinions, where else is worth seeing and taking in an NBA game?
I'm pretty Northeast biased. I'm a bit of a Philadelphia and Boston apologist as cities. I think they're great cities, food cities. Just like
think Boston is a great city.
I do. I actually do. I think there's
come a long way.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a lot to do. I think there's a lot to do and see in Boston, like between the harbor and like the diversity of the cuisine and all of that stuff. And, the history of the city, blah, 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 if you're into that kind of thing. If you want to be if you want to be a dad type of thing. And I think, going to TD Garden is a great way to take in an NBA game. Like, these people give a fuck about that team. And so they cultivate a great atmosphere to watch the team. And basically the same goes for the Sixers. I thought, I'm not going to lie, like pre-process, I thought like Sixers fandom, Philadelphia interest in the Sixers was a little bit overblown. I think I thought they had an overrated fan base, particularly for the Sixers, not the Eagles and the Phillies, because they're complete maniacs about those teams. But particularly, it felt like there was a bit of apathy about that team. But I don't think that's the case anymore. And I think Philly is just a dope city to be at. Like, it's bigger than you think. There's a lot more to do and see than you would think. And, taking a game in over there would be dope.
Yeah, this one's a tough one because the teams that have really exciting game environments, like the deep cut ones, typically don't have the most robust city on top of that. And so, for instance, I would say the best in-game experience I've ever had was in OKC, just because of the way that crowd gets on top of the court.
And they give you good media seats.
That helped too. Yeah, I was on the floor for that one. So I don't know if anyone else can get those tickets, but the city, not a lot to see outside of that, unless you're doing like a 1 to 2 day check-in where, like, I will say as a traveling media member, I have convinced myself that I could live virtually anywhere by being there for 1 to 2 days. If you're looking for like a 4 to 5 to 6 day trip, I'm not sure OKC can really support that unless you like make it a Dallas.
No, I'm OKC sure that it can't. I'm sure you don't want to spend 5 days in Oklahoma City. No shot.
But it's the same thing in reverse about New Orleans. Great city that I would encourage anyone else to visit.
But not the game experience.
That arena sucks.
And by the way, Portland, when they're good, is a great place for games. When they're good, but they're not good anymore. So, yeah.
Cheap tickets.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
It
but
matters,
you're right.
Like Miami, obviously a great city.
Totally.
You don't need to watch you're not, your life won't be changed by going to crypto.com or whatever that shit was called before the crash.
I think you're right about Boston. Boston's probably one of the best combinations of quality basketball plus a city that you would want to put on your list if you're coming from across the pond. I have amongst the deep cuts, I have Memphis as one that I think can support like a 3-day trip, if only because of the eating. Like, I think there's enough historic stuff. You go see that, but the food is so legit and FedEx Forum is like right there. And so you can go get your food fill and then walk to the arena for a game and do like a 2 to 3 sort of day trip. The other one is just LA, if only because they're opening into a dome, and just to go and see what could possibly be the best, or at least the most modern NBA arena, and then going to see LA would probably make a lot of sense. You get to hang out with Waz, show you the ropes.
And listen, the only thing I will say, as far as our friend from the UK going to Boston, there are a lot of Irishmen there. Watch your back. Hashtag fuck the Brits.
The Irish don't get along with the Brits?
No, they do not.
Oh, wow. See, I was actually just watching Love is Blind UK, and there was someone there from Ireland, I believe, and I was like, oh, everyone's just like one big happy melting pot, but apparently not.
Yeah, they're still pretty bitter about that whole Northern Ireland thing.
Okay. Well, we'll check back on that in our next pod, in our long form series on the interrelationships between Ireland and the UK. But that's it for us. Thank you to Isaiah Blakely for setting us up with these questions and for being on production as per usual. Thank you to Ben Cruz. We'll be back, I'm not sure, at some point over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll get the ball rolling into the regular season as always. But until then, we'll see you then.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn đến với lại kênh YouTube của mình. Hôm nay thì mình xin phép được chia sẻ một chút về cái chính sách bảo hành của Toyota. Thì cái chính sách này thì đã được công bố tháng 4 năm 2023. Thì hiện tại thì vẫn đang áp dụng sử dụng. Thì đây mình có một bộ tài liệu là bộ đào tạo bảo hành. Thì đầu tiên thì mình vào các nội dung chính trước, là nội dung mà giới thiệu về bảo hành và các điều kiện bảo hành và trách nhiệm của đại lý. Đấy, thì giới thiệu về bảo hành. 1. Định nghĩa bảo hành. 2. Phạm vi sửa chữa bảo hành. 3. Là thực hiện sửa chữa bảo hành. 4. Là phạm vi áp dụng bảo hành, các hình thức bảo hành, phạm vi giới hạn bảo hành và những thông tin không được bảo hành. Tiếp theo là sự cần thiết của việc làm bảo hành đúng. Đầu tiên chúng ta giới thiệu về bảo hành nhé. Định nghĩa, đúng không? Định nghĩa thì bảo hành là cái lời hứa hay là sự đảm bảo của nhà sản xuất với khách hàng, là cam kết sửa chữa thay thế miễn phí của Toyota đối với hỏng hóc thuộc phạm vi trách nhiệm của Toyota xảy ra khi bán xe trong một khoảng thời gian hoặc giới hạn nhất định, ví dụ như là 3 năm hoặc 100.000 km tùy điều kiện nào đi trước. Ví dụ như bảo hành sơn bề mặt 3 năm, lỗ thủng 3 năm, ắc quy 1 năm, pin hybrid 3 năm, thùng sau xe bán tải 1 năm về sơn và hàn dịch trong điều kiện bình thường, và xe phải bảo dưỡng được đầy đủ theo quy định. Các cái bảo hành mở rộng 5 năm, Vivo này, Innova, Fortuner, Altis, Camry, Cross, Land Cruiser, Veloz. Khách hàng thì sẽ lựa chọn mua các cái gói dạng bảo hành và tự thanh toán cái gói dạng bảo hành mua thêm. Thì cái model áp dụng sẽ là model của Toyota. Gói 1 là cộng thêm 1 năm và 25.000 km. Gói 2 là cộng 2 năm hoặc 50.000 km. Gói bảo hành cơ bản 3 năm 100 km bởi TMC. Nếu sẽ chạy lớn hơn 100 km và trên 3 năm thì sẽ cho TMC chịu. TMV chịu. Bảo hành sơn rỉ bề mặt thì sẽ là 3 năm 100.000 km. Bảo hành thủng lỗ do than rỉ 6 năm. Bảo hành ắc quy thường là 3 năm. Bảo hành thường thì 2 năm đầu thì nhà sản xuất chịu chi phí, năm thứ 3 chia sẻ giữa 50% và chi phí của khách hàng. Đấy. Thông thường thì Toyota cho bảo hành là 3 năm, sau khi gia hạn thì maximum là được 5 năm. Đấy. Thì khách hàng sẽ lựa chọn mua các gói gia hạn bảo hành và tự thanh toán cho gói gia hạn bảo hành để mua thêm. Ở model áp dụng thì các mẫu xe Lexus đang lưu hành không được áp dụng chế độ bảo hành được gia hạn, mà khách hàng chỉ được mua một gói một lần duy nhất, không được mua nhiều lần nhiều gói. Đối tượng áp dụng cái phụ tùng bán lẻ, tức là khi chúng ta mua phụ tùng chính hãng của Toyota ấy, thì chúng ta sẽ được áp dụng cái việc bảo hành 1 năm này, 20.000 km từ cái lớn trước. Đấy, từ ngày hoàn thành lắp và giao xe cho khách. Đấy là phụ tùng mua lẻ 1 năm 20 km chỉ áp dụng khi khách hàng mua và lắp tại đại lý thôi. Trước kia thì Lexus này, quanh Toyota có lên bảo hành qua Toyota. Còn hiện tại thì TMV bỏ chính sách 5 km với các đại lý Toyota rồi. Đối tượng áp dụng các dòng xe Toyota và Lexus được khách hàng mua phụ kiện lắp tại đại lý. Thời hạn là 3 năm 100 km, tối thiểu là 1 năm 20 km từ cái đường trước. Để phụ kiện sẽ khác. Đấy. Đây, có các trường hợp. Một là khách hàng Lexus chính hãng vào đại lý Toyota yêu cầu sửa chữa bảo hành. Hai là hàng Lexus chính hãng vào đại lý Toyota yêu cầu làm bảo dưỡng miễn phí. Ba là khách hàng mang xe của Lexus vào đại lý Toyota mua phụ tùng Lexus. 4 là khách hàng mua từng loại phụ tùng trả ở đại lý Toyota ủy quyền quay lại đại lý để yêu cầu bảo hành. Trường hợp 1 và 2, tức là ông cầm xe Lexus ông vào đại lý Toyota và yêu cầu bảo dưỡng và bảo hành, thì Toyota không được phép làm claim bảo hành bảo dưỡng trực tiếp lên TMV. Do vậy trường hợp này đại lý Toyota cần liên hệ với đại lý Lexus bán xe. Việc thanh toán chi phí sửa chữa cho đại lý Toyota sẽ cho đại lý Lexus chi trả, tức là vẫn đến được, nhưng mà đấy là câu chuyện của đại lý và hàng sản xuất thôi, còn khách hàng thì cứ đến các đại lý Toyota mà sửa. Ở tình huống 3 và 4 thì đại lý Toyota đặt hàng trực tiếp với TMV. Nếu phát sinh bảo hành thì đại lý Toyota claim trực tiếp lên TMV. Phạm vi sửa chữa bảo hành áp dụng đối với những lỗi do vật liệu lắp ráp thuộc trách nhiệm Toyota. Sửa chữa bảo hành là miễn phí, gồm tiền công, tiền phụ tùng và tiền thuê ngoài. Thực hiện sửa chữa bảo hành, việc áp dụng thành chỉ thực hiện khi có khách hàng khiếu nại, và việc sửa chữa bảo hành khi cho những lỗi phát hiện trong quá trình làm bảo dưỡng chỉ được thực hiện sau khi có sự đồng ý của khách hàng, và sửa chữa bảo hành phải được thực hiện tại xưởng của đại lý ủy quyền bởi TMV. Phạm vi áp dụng đối với những xe được nhập khẩu phân phối bởi TMV, các công ty thương mại ủy quyền trong lãnh thổ Việt Nam. Bảo hành không áp dụng với những xe cá nhân dịch chuyển đến nước ngoài. Trường hợp xe thuộc các tổ chức có thư ủy quyền bảo hành của TMC kèm theo các chứng từ nhập khẩu hợp lệ. Phạm vi gia hạn bảo hành: thay thế nguyên cụm này, thay thế đồng thời các chi tiết đối xứng này, ắc quy này, lốp vỏ này, kéo xe. Giới thiệu về bảo hành. Phạm vi giới hạn bảo hành thì là thay thế nguyên cụm phụ tùng. Thay thế nguyên cụm phụ tùng chỉ áp dụng trong những trường hợp sau: hư hỏng liên quan đến toàn bộ cụm phụ tùng. Đấy, chi phí thay thế cả cụm ít hơn so với thay thế từng chi tiết. Và thay thế nguyên cụm phụ tùng không áp dụng trong các trường hợp sau: do hết chi tiết phụ tùng bán lẻ và do khách hàng yêu cầu. Nguyên tắc cơ bản của sửa chữa bảo hành là chỉ sửa chữa hoặc thay thế những chi tiết bị hư hỏng, chứ không phải là hỏng một động cơ kêu, hỏng một phần nhỏ thay cả động cơ. Đấy, điều đấy thì sẽ không có xảy ra. Đấy, giới thiệu về tiếp là giới thiệu giới hạn bảo hành thì thay thế đồng thời các chi tiết đối xứng. Sửa chữa bảo hành hạn chế các việc sửa chữa thay thế đồng thời làm hỏng chi tiết đối xứng. Cái đấy thì phải do bên kỹ thuật đánh giá. không chấp nhận việc thay thế các chi tiết đối xứng trước sau trái phải mà thực tế không có hư hỏng. Đấy. Phạm vi giới hạn ắc quy thì thay thế vùng chỉnh hãng đặt qua TMV, claim ắc quy hỏng sẽ theo hàng. Ok, thế buổi hôm nay tạm thời kết thúc. Xin chào các bạn và hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong buổi ngày hôm sau. Ok, và buổi hôm sau thì hẹn các bạn đến chúng ta tìm hiểu tiếp tục về chính sách bảo hành của Toyota. Còn buổi này thì tạm thời kết thúc. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại.